Welcome to the Voices for Voices podcast, sponsored by Redwood Living. Thank you for joining us today. I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, host and humanitarian. You can learn more about Voices for Voices on our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website at voicesforvoices.org. Voices for Voices is a 501c3 nonprofit charity organization that survives solely on donations. So if you are able to, please consider heading over to our website to help us continue our mission and the goal and dream to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. Or you can also send a donation to the mailing address of Voices for Voices at 2388 Beckett, Becket, Circle, that's in Stowe, Ohio, at 44224. In this installment of the Voices for Voices podcast, I will feature our new Career Center, where as an organization, we're able to directly impact the third section of what Voices for Voices does, which is workforce development and advancement. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get started. So to get to where we are today, I like to take a look back at where we started, and really even before Voices for Voices started, and how the Voices for Voices Career Center even had its idea inception. And that really comes from my career path, my overall career and industry changing, job changing, losing jobs, getting promoted into new jobs, traveling from Northeast Ohio here to Houston, Texas for a job. But really, what it comes down to is wanting to help others. And while I found that helping others was a goal and something that I wanted to do, I was not able to do that if I was not helping myself. So my career story, again, goes to good times and bad, peaks and valleys. Good performance reviews and bad performance reviews. And so that is very important to bring my experiences to help others, because we know life isn't a straight line to success, to more money, to fame, to accolades, to bigger houses, more expensive cars, what have you. And so going through that myself was difficult to do, but as I look back many years later, as I stand here today, I'm happy in a sense. Obviously more happy in the positive times than the negative times, but happy I was able to have both the positive and the negative, because that gives me a unique platform to be able to share experiences with others. That once somebody decides to go to school, or whether they go into the trades, that life isn't going to be a straight line. And so we want to make sure that we just level set everybody. And sometimes those aren't taught necessarily in school. A lot of times, we're taught what's in the textbook here. So this is just an integrated marketing communication textbook. And so we're usually taught mostly what's inside the pages of the textbook. And while that is very important towards attaining our degree, into getting that baseline of information, of vocabulary, of processes, it's also important to bring life experiences into play. Because again, life isn't a straight line. What the book and books show and share are not always exactly what's going to happen. Somebody may go through their education, land their first job, and within a year, layoffs may occur within that organization. And that is something that's tough to go through. And I can just imagine an individual thinking, like, wow, I wasn't really prepared for all the ancillary or supplemental things that I could have done to continue to just have a networking career as well as the professional career, to always have their thoughts and their ideas of what they want to do in the next 3, 5, and 10 years. Now, while those are questions that many times are asked in the interview setting, it's important to think about. Because as I've referenced throughout our time together with the Voices for Voices podcast, and as well as any media that I do, any other people that I talk to, leaders from all walks of life, all industries, it's something that you have to be ready for. You have to be ready for change. You have to have yourself in the best position going forward. And unfortunately, sometimes what the intentions of organizations might not line up with what yours are in the long term. So maybe long term you want to get married, you want to have children, maybe you want to move to a different geography, maybe the industry that you find yourself in is not the industry you would like to. As we know, there's industries that are more attractive than others. And I know firsthand, first job out of college, working for a steel company. So not one of the sexiest kind of industries to look at. Like, oh wow, I'm going to do marketing for a steel company, for steel pipe and tubing and forgings, versus some of the more the products that we say that we see on television more, with the electronics, with the Apples and the Googles of the world. So making sure that you have your thoughts in order, and you really do think about, and you don't just turn away when somebody says, oh, what do you think you want to do in 3 and 5 and 10 years? That's something I did. I turned away at first, and I was like, well, I don't know. I want to have a job, I want to make money, and I want to progress, because that's what I felt that I wanted to do at the time. But looking back many years later, if I had the knowledge, and hindsight's always 20/20, if I had the knowledge and experience I have now back when I was just exiting college, I would have probably taken a different route. I would have been more of an entrepreneur, more of wanting to reach out and help others directly and right away, and making sure that what I was doing tied also to my emotions and not just to the paycheck that I was bringing in. So how did the Voices for Voices Career Center get started? So I'll harken back to a few years ago. I was working for a local organization, First Energy. They went through cutbacks, and I was affected. So I walked in one day after working for a couple of years, and I was called to a conference room and told that I was no longer going to be employed with the organization. And at that point, again, reverting back to what I said, I was not prepared. I didn't have my resume updated, my networking was poor. I was basically at ground zero at that time of what do I do? Well, obviously, look for a job, look for employment to make a living, to pay the bills. But how am I going to do that? Because I hadn't done that over the course of my career up to that point. I was just going to work each day, and that's how things were going. And then my mental health was kind of creeping into some of the symptoms of anxiety and stress and some ER visits. And so all that was kind of culminating for a negative perfect storm, if you have it. So it was at that point that I knew that I didn't want to be in that position ever again. Knowing that I'm not perfect, and what I was going to start on, the journey, it was not perfect. I wanted to be in a position that I was more in the positive. I was more in the proactive than the reactive. Instead of walking in and saying, okay, you're out of a job today, and have that be it and have to start from ground zero. If I was going to lose a job, I wanted to at least have some networking, have my resume up to date. Again, think internally of what I wanted to do as an individual long term. And it was at that point when I lost the job and I didn't know really what was going to be next. There's really no crystal ball that tells us what's going to come next. And so I, again, thought, I don't want to be in this position again. And so two things really happened. That happened, and also my wanting to help others happened. That thought was integrating itself into my mind, into my thoughts. And so that's where we think about today with the Career Center, with Voices for Voices. That's when things really came together for the first time. So I wanted to help others, and I didn't want to be in a position of not being able to be in the proactive side of things. And so what came with that was wanting to teach, wanting to go back to either my alma mater, Walsh University, where I earned my Master's of Business Administration and Management, or other institutions, and share my experiences. Again, up until that time, I had positive experiences, but the most recent experience at that time was a negative one. And so I was very fresh in my thoughts of, what can I do? What would I hope that somebody in my position of walking into work one day and losing their job would be in? What better position? What could they have done? What could they have in the background, kind of working simultaneously or parallel with going to work? And so I reached out to a couple institutions, went through the interview process to be an adjunct professor, which is a part-time, not a full-time. I had my master's, not my PhD. And luckily, within probably about 6 months, I had earned a new job. And then I also was given an opportunity to start teaching at Walsh University. And so I was living at that point in Dublin, Ohio, and driving up once a week for, I believe it was a 3.5 hour class. But because I had that drive and knowledge of what I really wanted to do, the drive was hard, the drive was tough, it was tough mentally. I was able to, fortunately, be able to work from home the following day from my parents' house, and so that was very helpful. But I was able to start down the path of wanting to actually help others, not just have that thought in my mind, but make it into action. How can I help myself so I can help others? So when I started teaching, I thought, as maybe other instructors, maybe you're an instructor or know somebody that has taught before, we want to bring the real world into the classroom. Sometimes it's called experiential learning, experiential teaching. So bringing those life experiences that happen and bring those into the classroom to give the students an opportunity to hear of the good, the bad, the great, the ugly. And with that, I started to think, hey, I've just been through some tough times. So how can I add value of bringing that experiential learning into the classroom? So going from just, what are the terms in the processes in the integrated marketing course, which was the first course that I started teaching several years ago at Walsh University. So I not only wanted to teach the concepts, I wanted to teach that experiences of, here are things that you can do while you're working and put yourself in a better position than I was. So I'm really talking to myself at the time and now of what did I wish and what did I think that what should I have done previously before walking in the door the one day where I lost my job, which is tough. It's tough from a professional side, it's a tough from financial side, and it's tough mentally. So it really hits all cylinders. So what I decided to do was let me make it start out as an outline. Let me just make an outline of some top things that I think that could help individuals or could help myself in the past. So if they walked in that door and unfortunately lost their position, that they would be in a much better area to move forward. So each class, I went over the marketing content, but then I also added in some of these bullet points that I added to outline, and whether that's creating your resume, whether that is creating your cover letter, whether it is creating a LinkedIn profile or other professional networking profiles, whether that is mock interviewing, and many other areas, but those are a few just to name right off the top of my head. And so I had this one piece of paper that I would bring with me each class, and that was kind of how things went from the first year. And I think it was after the first year of teaching, I had some time off, so I wasn't asked to teach, I believe, the next term. And I switched my job. So I switched from a position that was in Dublin, Ohio, back here to Northeast Ohio. So my wife now lives in Northeast Ohio with where I grew up and where my parents and my family's from. And so she didn't want to move down to Dublin. And so I found myself, really from the moment that I found myself working in Dublin, trying to find a position back here in Northeast Ohio because of the relationship that I was in. So those are things that you might not learn in school of what to do in this situation. What are these hypotheticals? And many of those you might not know until it actually happens, but that was the position I was in. So found a new position up here in Northeast Ohio, and I went back and I was asked to teach another term. And I believe 2 years went by, and at the end of those 2 years, I found myself at a really toxic company where management just wasn't supporting what I felt that they should. There were some unethical things going on at the organization, and it's a Northeast Ohio company, so I'm not gonna mention it here on our podcast because we all know there's good companies and companies that could use some work. So what I did was, because I was in a good position at the time financially of using my know-how of paying off debt the best that I could, I was in a good position that I was able to really step back from that position and say, look, this is really a position not for me. It's an organization not for me. And again, my mind is still continuing on that, wanting to help others. How do I continue to get in front of people, to put literature together, to help others? And the classroom was the big one at that time. So I stepped back from a position, and it was hard. I was really entering a very, starting the downfall of my mental health from like a humongous perspective. So I was already trending down mental health wise. But at that point, I was prescribed from general physician some medication, and it wasn't working. And then the job situation happened, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be out of this toxic environment. I don't need to be on this medication. So there's all these things going on. Again, those aren't taught in the classroom. those are things that just through real life, we go through, some of us. And so what ended up happening was I found myself with some time in between careers, or in between jobs, I want to call it. And so what did I decide to do? I reached out to one of the faculty members at Walsh University who had published a couple books. And I asked him, I said, what's the process? How do you do this? Is it possible? What are the steps, A to Z? What things do I need to do? So I sat down with this particular instructor, and for a couple hours, he went up and whiteboarded the whole process he used, mentioned all the resources that he used, people that I could reach out to. And so then this idea, or these ideas that was on a one-page paper, bullet point, printed out, that I was carrying back and forth to class, turned into an endeavor to write a book. And so that book turned into what you see here today, the House of You, 5 workforce preparation tips for a successful career. And so while 5 tips is in the actual title of the book, I offer way more than 5 tips, as well as 5 case studies of real life situations and experiences of, here are things that have happened. What would you do in this particular case? Would you go the way management did? Would you go a different way? Would you combine a couple of the outcomes of what you do? And so that really was able for me to bring information from my mind, my experience, in a form, whether people buy it or not, it doesn't matter, because I teach from my experiences regardless of whether a student or a faculty member purchases my book. It's about giving that experience and sharing the good, the bad, the ugly with students, and with not only students, but through my endeavor here with Voices for Voices. It could be students. It could be somebody who, like myself, was working for over 10 years and found themselves in maybe a toxic environment and didn't know what they wanted to do. And maybe they're looking for a career change. Maybe they're looking to enter a different industry. Maybe there's certifications that they need to earn before they can switch jobs. Maybe their financial position isn't the greatest. So all these things taken into account, everything in the book and that I teach comes out to be relevant to individuals, whether they're 19, 20, 21, in college, whether they go into the trades, whether they go into the military. Personal brand is very important, because as an individual, let's say, comes out of the military, their personal brand of what they've done, who they are, what they want to be, all those things are very similar to an individual going to high school and graduating and entering college and going through that collegiate process, and then getting to that point where they're going to be graduating. They are in a position to give their personal brand and share that with an organization. Organizations and companies, and I'm sure you out there who have run companies and know people that have, organizations don't just want people to work for them. They want somebody that's going to represent them wherever they go. So they're going to talk positive about the organization. So that brand is going to be with them 24/7. Their social media postings are going to line up with the organization's mission and vision. And so those are types of things that I talk about. So how is that relevant to what we do today here at Voices for Voices and the launch of our Career Center to the world? This being the resource, the book here, The House of You, this is one way that we help individuals going through that job search, that job transition, that industry transition process. So those teachings have already been going on. Those are things that, again, even prior to Voices for Voices being founded, were already going on. So what today is, it is expanding on that. It's making things much bigger, which again, I talk about Voices for Voices being a 100-year organization, not a fly-by-night organization, an organization that I view and feel that I can help and we can help 3 billion people in my lifetime and beyond. So to do that, we have to continue to grow. We have to continue to be actionable, not just share education and tips and fads that look great and get a lot of likes and shares on social media. We need things that are actionable, that somebody can do right now, today. And so that's where the Career Center comes in. So if you're by a computer, you have your smart device with you. If you head over to voicesforvoices.org, and there are different tabs that you can look at. One is now there that's called the Career Center. And so click on that, and that takes you right to the Career Center, the Voices for Voices Career Center that's embedded into our website. Or you can go directly to voicesforvoices.career, which is CAREER, website, WEBSITE.com. And that will take you directly to that same landing page. So whichever way that you go about it, you're going to end up at that spot. So one thing that I've been asked throughout this many-month process of getting the Career Center up and running is, are the jobs only going to be mental health and behavioral health related? Are they only going to be nonprofit related? And the answer is no. The industries, they span all industries. They expand not only in Northeast Ohio, but across the United States. And we're also looking to getting integrated jobs that are in other countries as well, because we have a big following with individuals and organizations in countries besides the United States. And so those things are on the way. But today, as you're watching this, you're listening to this podcast, you're able to head over to our Career Center, whether you're a job seeker. So if you're a job seeker, you're able to upload your resume, you're able to apply to positions, to jobs that you want to. You're able to do that search on our site just as you would other job search sites. So you can look for a job description, job titles in certain geographies, and then the results will come back, and then you'll just go through that same process. So we work with an organization that has proprietary information and intellectual property that allows us to be able to do this. So again, you're able to upload your resume, you're able to search, apply for positions. And one thing that's also a differentiator from other sites is the fact that you don't have to share your information with the employer until you're ready. So a lot of times information is handed over electronically from the aggregator site, the job site, to the employer of person's name and their background. See, the way we have our site built is the job seeker is in the driver's seat, and they're able to wait until they're ready to share their personal information with the job seeker, the employer. And so that's an area that gives some flexibility to individuals who, again, their companies are being hacked, it seems like every day. And so we're leery about some things. And some of you might be like, okay, well, I'm just learning about Voices for Voices. I'm not really sure if I should do this. then you take your time and go about the methods and the way that you would like to go about it. And that's perfectly okay. There is also the availability of having your resume checked out and having coaching on resume, as well as for insights and blog postings about hot topics from individuals who have lived it, who are going to share that with you and all of the individuals that are going to be viewing that information. And all those insights are available to you. So you can upload your resume, create your profile, you can search for jobs, or you could just search for jobs until you're ready to upload your resume. Maybe you're not in that state to be able to, state of mind and have the resume in that finalized state to be able to apply to a job. So you might be waiting until that point comes for you to be able to apply. So you might just be searching, so you might do that. And you also are able to have the job flash or the job alerts that come directly to your inbox based off of the criteria that you set up. So everything is centered around you, the individual, the job seeker. On the flip side, we also have embedded in the website, not just for the job seeker, but for the employer. So if you're an employer and you want to post a job, there's a process at the same URL and the same way to get to the Career Center from the voicesforvoices.org, and then clicking on the Career Center tab, or going to that voicesforvoices.careerwebsite.com, and that'll take you to that spot. So you'll be able to check out from really both sides of the equation. You'll be able to check and see what types of jobs are out there, where those jobs are at. Maybe you're looking to see if a competitor has posted a job that's showing. And again, for an employer, we want to be that differentiator, that finding those individuals, those other target individuals that are interested in a new job, a new career, transitioning from university to, we call it the real world, to the business world, to whatever industry that you're looking to. Maybe you're coming out of the military. Maybe you've been in the trades and you're looking to supplement some of your income. And so you may be seeing what's out there. All that information is included in the new Voices for Voices Career Center. And again, that's something that's actionable that you can do today. The other organizations, while we all have things that we're good at, and there are organizations that do many fantastic things. But what we're trying to be at Voices for Voices, again, we want to be actionable. We want to reach the individual no matter where they're at in their career. And so that's that third pillar. And so that has something to do with behavioral health and mental health, but it's not totally delineated strictly for mental health and behavioral health. If you are a university professor and looking for another position, whether your loved one is going to be got a new job in a new geography, and so you might want to look and see what jobs are out there that you can potentially apply to and potentially earn a job offer and acceptance, and then that might make your move that much more easier to be able to make that move, because moving's hard enough as it is. Even if you have a company to help box up your things, there are just a lot of small things of getting your license changed, of getting your address changed, register to vote, little things that if you're able to spend more time on that, you're able to check those things off the list. And so having a way to check and see what jobs are available. Your loved one may have been offered that position in a different state, and you may have 2 weeks or maybe 1 week or whatever that time frame is to look and see if that job is what you want and what your loved one wants. And so within that 2 week period or 1 week or 2 days, whatever that period of time is, you're able to jump over to the Voices for Voices Career Center and check out the jobs that are out there and see if there are things that line up with what you want to do. And so that's what I find is very, very exciting. So people say, like, you say you're excited, but you don't have that look on your face. I had a previous employer that's what they told me. I went into a meeting and I was managing at the time trade shows, which is something I had absolutely no experience in, and the only experience I have to this day is with that organization. And we had a really good trade show. All the deliverables, all the goals that we wanted to achieve, we achieved. And it was a big thing from the first trade show to the second one of, okay, what did I learn from that first trade show of everything from traveling, who's coming with us, if an organization is going to be coming by our trade show booth, I want to make sure that the sales rep or the purchase rep is available to be able to have those conversations so we don't miss hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars in sales that were occurring. So everything went fantastic, for lack of better terms and an analogy. And so on the wrap-up call, I was saying that I was excited that to report these things, and I went down the line. And the owner of the organization said, "Oh, you don't look excited." And again, that's something that really, it's a small thing, and that employer, maybe they weren't intending to hurt my feelings, and some of you might say, "Oh, well, you just need to have thicker skin." Well, where I'm at, and as an individual with my mental health, some things affect me more than others. As one of my previous doctors said, that if there was a sound on the ceiling or on the roof, that I would react or jump up more than what they would do, and so that's something that I've had to learn with and deal with. So going back to that employer, that you don't look very happy. That really was something I thought about. I was like, okay, how do I look? And so that led into the decline of my mental health, not solely because of that, but that was something I was thinking about. And if you ask my family and my wife, one of the things that going into that decline, and even at those very vulnerable days shortly after that decline, that was what I would ask them almost 100% of the time. How do I look? What do I look? You said I look okay. Like, are you just saying that because you're, my wife, because you're my mom, you're my dad, you're my sister, what have you? And so again, I don't know if that came from that particular experience with that employer. I think in part it may have, but I think what it really did come from was the fact that mental health and behavioral health are things we can't see. Just an individual goes through, let's say they're playing soccer and they twist an ankle and their ankle bruises up and in the black and blue and yellow and green, whatever those colors are. And so you can see that. Individuals can see that. But when somebody is going through a tough time, like that employer that said, "Oh, well, you don't look like you're excited," then you start questioning things internally. People don't see that necessarily. And so that's something that was, it was tough. It was tough to hear those types of things. Like, how do I look? How do I look? And so that had stayed with me for a long time. And even to this day, there are probably times when I do ask, like, so how do I look? Do I look like you're saying I'm okay? You're saying that I'm doing well. My psychiatrist says, "Oh, you're functioning at a high level." And so I would say, are you just saying that because you want me to be happy? You want me to feel like I'm improving, or not? Are you what's the deal here? And so those are things that are kind of going on inside my head. So those are my experiences. I'm not talking for anybody else, but those are things that can affect individuals. And so those things, along with what actually occurs and what happens, in the job world, whether you're starting a business and seeing how slow things are and seeing competitors. So seeing how a competitor who's been around for 40, 50, 60, 100, 200 years, seeing things that they're doing and seeing successes that they're having, and you want to have that. And I'm in that boat. I'm seeing other organizations, and I'm saying, well, what do we have to do to get there? And sometimes it's time, and that's hard for somebody like me that's very, very impatient. But it's something that it comes, I guess, the experience of going through it, you have to be kind of in it to take a step back and have somebody who has nothing really to gain or to lose by saying that to you. Whether they say things are going well and you might not be seeing it, or I might not be seeing it, you have to have individuals that they don't have anything to gain. They're not going to make extra money, or they're not going to lose money by what they say. So you want to just think about that, and that's something that as an individual to think about. And nothing is more stressful than a job interview. And job interviewing is something not only that I cover in the material that we've already at Voices for Voices covered with individuals, but with the Voices for Voices Career Center, that's something that is something we want to help alleviate as much as possible. So what do I mean by that? So there's going to be stresses that they're going to just come, and when I give a presentation, when I tape this podcast, when I do interviews, when I travel, there's many things that I do. When I teach, that I get nervous and just have times where it's like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to get through this? And what do they think? Do they see me being nervous? And so there's parts of our brain that if we can kind of put on autopilot, like having that resume updated, like having those job alerts created and maybe applying to a couple positions and feeling that out and seeing if maybe there's another position, another job out there, another vocation, another career out there, another industry that you might want to join. The more things we can kind of put on autopilot of, okay, I'm not sure how I feel about the current position I'm in, so I'm just gonna look. I'm gonna peruse the Voices for Voices Career Center, and so you come to the Career Center, you upload your profile, your resume, you reach out for some resume pointers, you do some job searching, do some applying, and so those are things that are kind of happening in the background. So when it comes time for that call to you, says, Justin, we'd like to bring you in for an interview, or we'd like to have a Zoom interview today or in a month, whatever time may be, doesn't matter. You're getting that positive reinforcement. Your resume has already been updated, and so there's things that have already been taken care of. So yeah, you're going to be nervous for an interview, answering questions or what questions are they going to ask me? Am I prepared? Am I not? What do they think of what I wore? And we can take things down to like the most basic level, which I've done. Of, oh my gosh, they looked at me a certain way when I answered this question, so they must not like it, or they made a comment, or they didn't shake my hand. And with COVID, maybe that's something that some individuals they don't shake hands with individuals that they're interviewing now, where they may have used to in the past. And so by taking those things out of our mind and out of our head a little bit, of having that resume updated and completed and going through that process, that's something that's already done that you don't have to really think about. You don't have to take a lot of energy to do. Whereas taking things back and rewinding to the beginning of this podcast episode when I'm talking about when I lost my job at First Energy. That day, I didn't have my resume updated. I didn't have a network that I felt comfortable to reach out to. I have burned a ton, if not almost all my bridges, and you might hear that. I've never burned a bridge. You never know when an individual or a company might reach out to you. And so those are things that, again, I don't like that happened, but it happened. And so I have to live with it. So bringing things back to today, if I had the wherewithal to head over to the Voices for Voices Career Center, then I would have already had my resume in a good position to be able to start looking for positions and being in that proactive side of things instead of reactive. Can't always be in proactive side of things, but that's something that, again, I looked at. I want an individual or myself in the past that's in a position of I don't want to be I don't want to say it again. I don't want to be in that position again. I don't want to be in that position where my resume isn't updated. And I might not be looking for another job, but you might run into somebody on vacation, and you just never know when you run into somebody. They'll say, hey, shoot me over your resume, and it might turn into some fantastic opportunity. And so those are other things, who you know and who you meet. That's also something to keep in mind. Whereas I kept myself very closed-minded, and so I was so closed-minded that, again, I didn't have my resume updated. I wasn't searching for jobs. My networking, my LinkedIn profile, my networking sites, they weren't in a really good spot. So I had to, take that look back, and it's tough looking back now and saying, wow, like that sucked. But it's also a positive today because of how we're helping people and how, with this added feature of the Voices for Voices Career Center, is going to help so many people. It's going to put so many people in the proactive and on the offense instead of the defense. That they're worthy, that they can go to a site from an organization like Voices for Voices and check out career opportunities and add that to their job belt, their tool belt. Because what I found through my experience is almost any individual, but especially somebody going through some behavioral health, mental health, or even not, just you're just having a tough go about it. Finding a job, and you might be like me, have gone through the more jobs than you kind of wish for a 10 or 15 year period, and you may be losing more jobs than you're gaining, and that type of activity is very, very tough. And so what we're doing, and the goal is to be able to help, again, to the very core of Justin Allen Hayes, of what do I want to be as an individual when I'm not here anymore. Life is going to go on. The world is going to continue to turn. This organization is going to continue to be there and to offer ways to help others. And this has been a long time in the coming. The Career Center, it's something that I don't take lightly because it's important to people, and it's important to me. It's important to my board. It's important to our community. It's important to all the people like yourself that have supported our organization from day one, especially our #1 sponsor, Redwood Living, of being with us, of supporting the mission, vision of what I saw at that time and how it continues to evolve and just get bigger and bigger, kind of like that snowball, just getting bigger and bigger with the positive things that we're doing. And so as we're in 2023 right now, we've launched the Voices for Voices Career Center. I've said that probably like 100 times throughout this podcast. But I want you to remember, I want you to tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a colleague about it, tell a business owner that you know. Let them know that this resource is out there. And whether you or they utilize it on the job seeker side or the employer side, or if they or you want to be involved with the organization, if you want to volunteer and help us in the mission vision to continue to help people and to reach that goal of mine of helping 3 billion people in my lifetime and beyond, that maybe I can get that number increased. And so just a word on that 3 billion. 3 billion is a big number, a lot of people. But I've been blessed in the year 2022 to be able to share my story with a couple different networks. So one is the EWTN network. They reach 400 million households in 200 countries. Average household is two plus. So that gets you to 800 million. I was on, and I was lucky to be on 3 episodes, and I was able to ask 3 questions with my branding of Voices for Voices and talking about Voices for Voices, and how it started and where I'm at and what we want to do and what we are doing. And so coming into 2023, when those episodes are going to be airing, those 3 episodes, they're going to be hitting a lot of people. I know that not all 400 million households are going to be watching those particular episodes. But when I think of what a billion is, it's a huge number. 2 billion is even bigger. 3 billion is even bigger than that. But just knowing that I have that opportunity to reach potentially even 500 million with those 3 opportunities given, as well as being a audience member and being able to comment on the Dr. Phil show. So I would think many people, many of the listeners, many of the viewers have heard of Dr. Phil. And so I had the opportunity to be in his audience and to comment on a topic that the show was covering for the day, and to say Voices for Voices. And so that reaches 3 million people a day. So these big numbers that I throw out, they are big numbers. But I'm a person that dreams, and the dreams start to slowly come true. And so you have to start dreaming bigger and bigger. And that's where I'm at. And so I didn't know these experiences or opportunities were going to happen in 2022. I didn't. I had no clue. I had the dream and the vision of where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go and where I want us as an organization, not just me, not just Justin Allen Hayes, but the whole organization, the board, the community started in Northeast Ohio, for the Ukrainian refugees that we were able to visit in Warsaw, Poland, for the person who was coming to the Akron Kent Regional Food Bank for their food giveaway. And we were able to give a check for the individual to purchase more food. Whatever that may be, or giving an opportunity to somebody to go to a Cleveland Guardians playoff game that it is handicapped and is asking for money legitimately outside the stadium. So whatever format those take, you can rest assured and know that things like that are just going to continue to occur with our organization. We're going to continue to get bigger. We're going to continue to help more and more people. We only received our 501c3 status in May of 2022. So we're really less than a year into kind of the full going forward with this thing. And I'm very excited. I'm empowered. I love the opportunity to use my time and energy to help others instead of I was using time and energy prior to party and to abuse alcohol, abuse substances, abuse medications, overdose on cold and cough medicine and when I was 18, 19 years old. And so I love what I do, and I hope that resonates with you, the viewer, the listener of the Voices for Voices podcast. So I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Voices for Voices podcast and learning how Voices for Voices is helping the community with workforce development, career development, and advancement. I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, host and humanitarian. Until next time, have a great day, and please be a voice for yourself or somebody in need.